Welcome to See the World Differently. Come explore and discover the world around you. Hello, and welcome to a new edition of See the World Differently with Oceanscape Yachts. I'm your host, Rebecca Taylor, and this month I'm joined by another lovely guest by the name of Lauren Ryburn. Lauren is a stewardess on board luxury yachts. She's had the pleasure of being on board yachts all over the world. She's a Kiwi native. She was actually in her hometown when we had this call, so it was evening my time and the next day her time. And she's also the creator of thegreenstew.com and the same name on Instagram. And that's where I found her and we connected as we do with a lot of our guests. So thank goodness for Instagram. And in this episode, we actually chat a little bit more about ways to go green, especially in yachting, but not limited to just that, and how we can all be a little bit more eco-conscious in our day-to-day days. It is something that we do need to be talking about a little bit more, I think. And since most of what we talk about is on the ocean, that's one of our greatest assets. So we really want to be doing all we can to protect it. So we talk a little bit about that, and of course, some excellent travel destinations, and a little bit other info about being a stewardess in the yachting world. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you don't subscribe already, why not? Head over to iTunes or Google Play Store. Make sure you tick that little subscribe button. It's free, and it's also free to rate and review, which we love hearing from you all and seeing little new comments pop up. So please take a few seconds today if you've got it and share that with us. And without further ado, here's Lauren. Hey Lauren, thanks so much for joining us today. I know it's early tomorrow morning for you and it's evening for us, so I'm just thrilled that you can be on the show with us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Rebecca. And it's nice to be on the podcast. I love podcasts. I listen to them quite often on board, so it's quite cool to be on one myself.
Yeah, it's great, to be on board now and have them. Like, I guess audiobooks would have been the evolution, but podcasts, you can just get everything wherever you are in the world now, which is really nice.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, I listen to them a lot when I'm doing, the mundane tasks or maybe in the laundry or something. It can be quite inspiring and informative to listen to one as I'm working.
Yeah, and now you'll be doing it for someone else. So the circle is
Yeah.
complete. So for those who don't know, Lauren, could you just give a little bit of background on who you are and how long you've been in the industry and how you got to be on the podcast today, really?
Yeah, well, I'm from New Zealand. I grew up in New Zealand, and I was working as a spa therapist over there. And then I wanted to spread my wings, so I moved over to London for a couple of years where I was doing a bit of travel and working as a spa therapist. And then I heard about the yachting industry, which sounded very exciting, and I wasn't quite ready to move home yet. So I jumped on board and absolutely loved it, fell in love. So I've been doing it ever since. I've been doing it for 5 years now. And yeah, it's amazing. So now I'm working as usually a spa therapist, but also a second stew. And I've just started up my Instagram and a website called The Green Stew, where I'm hoping to inspire fellow yachties to, take an eco approach to the way they do things on board and inspire sustainability and start a little green movement.
Yeah, and it's
which
really
is already
important.
moving.
Yes, yeah, but in yachting too, I think it's becoming a lot more apparent, and I think people are really trying to work on it, but it is, with boats of that size and the travel and the different guest turnaround and stuff, there can be lots of ways that we could waste if we weren't thinking about it. So I'm sure that's what you noticed and what led you to create the Green Stew.
Yes, definitely. I think growing up in New Zealand, we always have the eco mentality. We've been taught it since we were very young, with be a tidy Kiwi or keep New Zealand green. And yeah, moving on the boats was a bit of a shock with the excuse me, the throwaway mentality, and the way we run things sometimes can be a little wasteful. But it seems to be changing, and I noticed myself that, there were things I could do in my own practices that could be changed and to inspire my fellow crew to do the same. But I think it's definitely heading that way. There's a lot more options out there for eco products, and there's a lot more talk about it. And I think we're slowly, flipping from the old traditions and starting to shed light on the sustainability side of things. And Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, and it's kind of a great time to be doing that, isn't it? Because I have discovered so many tips just for personally within my own home or work, or I have a dog, like all these different knock-on things, and people have kids, like Instagram, Pinterest, podcasts. There's so much information out there, and it's just great when you can get people who can zero into like whatever it is that you need. So if you have people that now know, okay, in yachting, cleaning supplies or water bottles, like things that are the one use and it's done kind of thing, then they know where to find information. I think that's really helpful to people either just starting out or who are just looking for tips in certain areas. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, yeah, definitely on land, there's, well, everywhere you see, wherever you turn, there's eco products, and that's great. And a lot of people are implementing it at home, and they have been doing for quite some time. But there's sometimes a little disconnect with us being on boats. We feel like we're in our own little bubble, so to
Mm.
speak. So it is crossing over now. But you're right. If there's somewhere you can go and you can learn more specific to yachting, and also see that other boats are doing it, other crew are doing it, and that it is okay to make these switches and move in this direction. We can change old practices that maybe were a little unsustainable, and move forward, still provide a great service, but also, yeah, being aware and making a change in our own industry. It's really great to see.
Yeah. And do you find are majority of the people on board with you, or like when you're on a boat, obviously there's different types of people that you work with. So maybe the captain or maybe the chef, like when you suggest things, do you find it's pretty well received, or do you think there's still a bit of a brush up against certain people that aren't ready to make changes?
Yeah, you can come up against a little resistance. Most people are pretty obliging, and I think it's hard to kind of turn a blind eye completely these days. But you do still come across people that are set in their ways. People don't like change so much. So yeah, it's just about approaching these people, and understanding that they're not bad people. They maybe just don't have the education, or you have people that have grown up in countries that have never recycled or never really been aware of environmental, eco awareness. So I think it's being aware of, excuse me, being aware of that, and yeah, just coming to them with kind of positive reinforcements, and generally most people are. It's really well received. But I found the best thing is to create an eco-conscious culture, a friendly environment where we can all kind of share information and tips and come up with things together, rather than just implementing this whole set of rules, or coming up with these crazy things of change that they don't understand why.
Yes, yeah.
But generally, I've been very lucky. People have very, it's very well received coming from HODs and captains. And my last boat, the owners were very obliging to eco awareness, so they were great. It was much easier to have the drive from them come from the top upwards. But
Yes.
even still, there's always changes you can make.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find, this might be putting you on the spot a bit, but have you been in your travels, like noticed particular places that are really, like whether it's a port or a city or a destination that's really cottoned on to the green movement and they're doing an amazing job? And equally, are there certain places that are just lacking? Like recently I was in the Bahamas, and while they're great in so many certain respects, you can see there's still, there's a lot of little islands and they might not have all the facilities, and like people making sure they take their trash with them. And I think everyone's becoming more conscious of that. But have you come across, the really amazing standout ports and cities that are doing it, and on the other side of the spectrum, places that need a little bit more help and education maybe?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You do, with our traveling around, you do see a wide range of different places, and the way they do things, and the education that they have. And I think you can sometimes get in a little bubble when you're, in little New Zealand, and you think, oh, everyone's doing really well.
Yeah.
And then you jump on a boat and go to some really remote village somewhere, or like you say, somewhere like in the Bahamas, or recently I was in Mexico, and it can be a bit of a shock, really. You think, oh, wow.
Yes.
But it's just about education, really, and I think they'll get there eventually. It's about spreading the word, and being hopeful that things will change. And then, yeah, I do have come across some amazing places. Shining example would be Costa Rica, which is one of my most favorite countries in the world. And their recycling facilities, and their eco-conscious awareness is just absolutely amazing. There's recycling bins everywhere you go, and the mentality they've educated the locals from a young age, because their tourism is the beauty of the country, and they realize that if that's lost, then they lose their revenue. So it works so well, and it's just so amazing to see. I remember, I think we'd been traveling around some certain areas that were not so obliging when it came to, or didn't have the facilities for recycling, and then we turned up to Costa Rica, and it was just like, and they had
Oh,
these beautiful row of recycling bins, and they even had organic waste, and it was like, oh wow, this is incredible. So we quickly changed on board to suit that. We had our little scraps bucket, slops bucket going again, and we were putting, the organics away and the plastic, and splitting everything up as we would anyway. But it was so amazing to see. So it just goes to show there is hope, and people are noticing. And yeah, they're saying that they have there is pura vida, which means pure life, and yeah, they definitely follow that mantra, which is amazing.
yeah, and it's funny, like you say, to see such extremes too, right? To go, you're kind of thinking, okay, we're in Central America, we're in the islands, whatever, and then you go and it's like, yeah, a little bit like an oasis in the middle of everything else, probably.
Yes, yeah. Well, when it comes to approaching these other countries as well, I always believe in, if you see they're not recycling, or they're doing things a different way, is not being afraid to kind of speak up in a positive way. But I've kind of put it upon myself to sometimes maybe go and even greet the guy coming to collect the rubbish, and saying, "Oh, hi, how are you? Do you recycle?" And they maybe say, "Oh, no, no, we don't." And just have a conversation with them, and say, "Oh, okay, well, it would be great if you did. Do you think one day you will, or why don't you? Is it the government? Is it this, that, or the other?" And it's kind of getting locals talking, and maybe he might think, "Oh, okay." And then if every person on board a boat came and asked that, they might think, "Oh, this is something."
Yeah.
And then he might go home and say to his family, "Oh, why don't we recycle?" And then they start to question. So I think we actually have a power in a way to kind of spark enthusiasm and questions, and get people talking, even in these places that maybe are a little bit behind with all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
I
that
think that
domino effect kind of.
exactly, yeah, and makes you feel good to be like, all right, well, there's a little step I can take, instead of just being completely heartbroken when your nicely split recycling goes into one bin.
Yeah. Everything nicely rinsed out and scraps all in a pile, and
Oh,
yeah, it's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of heartbreaking. Well, I found it really interesting when I mean, I'm lucky now. I was living in the country. I've just moved, and the city where I am now, it does do everything, and it does like food waste. So, but what was really cool when I first started composting in the country was my garbage went down by like a third. I barely even fill a garbage bag, which is amazing with
Oh,
a big house. So stuff like that too. It like if you also spin on its head, it's like, well, it's going to save you money because you're not going through like bags. Different
oh,
people will appeal
definitely.
to it in different ways. So I,
Exactly.
yeah, and it's just experience, I guess, and like you say, education. But as you mentioned, Costa Rica and places like the Bahamas, are you mainly centered in the Caribbean, or when you were in London, did you do a lot of Mediterranean seasons, or are you kind of all over?
Kind of all over actually. I've worked a lot of quite a few mid seasons, and then also been over in the Caribbean and around Central and South America. So yeah, I've
Nice.
had the been lucky enough to move around a lot, and yeah, it's just been incredible.
Yeah. Do you have any areas you'd like to go with your job? I mean, of course, like, some people say like Arctic Circle or even local to you, Australia, New Zealand, that's getting a lot more popular, isn't it?
It is, it is. In Costa Rica is one of my favorites. Definitely, I've been there on a boat, and also by plane and inland. So that's is one place that I absolutely love to go to, like I said. But also, yeah, I haven't actually done anywhere in Australia and New Zealand yet. Funnily enough, it's sometimes the way it goes. But I would love to actually be on a boat in these areas and see it from a different perspective. I think that might be the next hope for the next boat, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what's nice about yachting, isn't it? You can kind of go wherever, it's not a stagnant
Exactly.
place. Yeah. And
Yeah, you're lucky.
yeah, we were just chatting before hopping on the podcast about just the stress of charters and everything like that. And you do quite a few back to back here and there, and then take a little bit of time off. So you mentioned before being a green Kiwi and obviously have quite a love of nature. Like, how do you stay grounded during those really stressful times and when you're in the middle of a really busy season? How do you remain yourself and fresh for each new
Yes,
guest?
the key is to not lose touch with your identity. That's right, because sometimes you can get a little caught up with everything. But
Yes.
definitely getting amongst nature as much as possible. I know a little bit harder if you're mid charter, but that those few days in between, I'll spend that time off the boat as soon as possible, getting out into nature, touching trees, putting my bare feet on the ground and the earth, swimming in the ocean, just really grounding myself, because yeah, you can kind of lose touch with the outside world a little bit when you're in the midst of it all. But then
Yes.
even when you're on board, there are ways that I do try and connect. I do a lot of meditation, whether it be 5 minutes in bed, 5 minutes in the bathroom on the floor. Grab it whenever I can, and that really helps to kind of just channel and bring it all in and kind of level myself out again and clear my mind. And also, just even when you're in the middle of all of the mayhem, out on the aft deck setting the table, just stop for a half a minute and take a breath, look around, and just really become aware of where you are and the beauty, and show gratitude for where you are and how you've got there, and yeah, how lucky we are. So I think that's a really great way to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important too. I was listening to another podcast, and it was about sort of meditation stuff like that. And they were saying for the people who say they don't have time to meditate, they probably need to do it twice a day. And I thought that was really interesting because, like you say, you can do
Yes.
it anywhere, wherever, So you're setting the table for a dinner service or something like that, and who doesn't have 2 minutes to really sit back?
Exactly. It's the priorities. I mean, we might blow dry our hair for an hour, but maybe not meditate. So it's finding the balance.
Yeah, but it's always that way, isn't it? I mean, I run and I
Exactly.
hurt my knees, and then the physio's like, you can't spare 5 minutes to do a stretch at the end. And you're thinking, it's the simplest part, but it just sometimes, yeah, you need a reminder.
Oh,
So,
exactly. It's the way it goes.
unfortunately. Yeah,
Human nature.
exactly. And do you, I know it's very much a team job, obviously. So before you do have another round of guests come on, obviously there's a lot of communication. Like, how do you prepare for one job to the next with your team?
Yeah, a lot of lists are good. I think I've worked on many boats where we have, a really solid list of pre-charter checklist, which is amazing. That makes sure that you're never missing anything, but also coming together as a team or as a crew, and getting really inspired. And I had a captain that used to call meetings almost every day, and sometimes it was a bit of a drag, but a lot of the time it kind of you left feeling, all right, we're in this together, we're a team, we've got a goal, we're going to give these people a great trip, and it's something they're going to remember for years to come. And it's like a little pep talk, really, and it's amazing. And the same goes for in the interior team, or just coming together and sharing ideas and brainstorming, and just being all on the same playing field, and just coming together and trying to really put your heads together and make it an amazing upcoming trip.
Yeah, I think it's like
I
you
think
say, you get into that bubble, right? Even if you are, people who might be new to yachting, they think like, well, you're on a boat together, but actually, yeah, like, the stews are inside doing one thing, the captain's doing their thing, the chef's preparing everything. So if you're all kind of coming together and explaining where you're coming from and what your plans are, that helps a lot.
exactly, yeah. You might not ever see an engineer for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to kind of
Oh,
all
you're still
come
on
together.
board.
It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
oh, I thought you left.
Yeah.
I didn't know who was running the boat
Yeah,
downstairs,
yeah.
but
Thank God
anyway.
somebody was. Yeah. So do you have
Yeah, so
any
it's quite nice.
yeah, and do you have any tips, like you didn't come, that's the other thing I find really fantastic about yachting is that nobody comes from the same place. So people have had careers and then they've taken a switch or they've come right out of school or something. So somebody who wants to become a stew, do you have any like guidance or advice for them?
I think try and pull on your strengths, whether it be this, it can be the smallest of things, a hobby you have, or a skill you once learned that you think, oh, that won't matter, or you may have nannied or done something like that. I think really just bring out those skills, and really put them on the CV and make them notice, because that can be the small difference between you and another.
Yeah.
stewardess if you've got this little different skill that maybe the owner might like or they're looking for. I think that's a big one. And yeah, just being yourself, not being too daunted or too scared or try to be someone you're not just to fit into a block or a gap. Be who you are, because it will come out eventually anyway. So yeah, just be true to yourself and don't try and change too much.
Yeah, that's really nice too, because also if you were trying to be someone else, you're going to get on a boat where actually you don't fit in maybe in the end, right? Like if you're trying to be someone you're
Ex-
not and you apply to that, owner or team or whatever it is, it might not be long lasting.
Exactly, and usually they're looking for someone that's a bit of a character, or that's going to fit in with the vibe on board. So it's actually, sometimes can be looked for more so than maybe the set of housekeeping skills you might have. So
Yes,
yeah,
very
that can
true.
be taught. That can be taught, but a personality and energy cannot. So
Yes, we were speaking to the yacht stew, Gemma Christian, a
hmm
couple months ago, and she was saying the same thing because, she was a green stew at one point, and she's like, I have a lot of time for them because everyone's learning and coming from their own place, and that's what's kind of cool when you are so new because you're just a sponge, you're soaking everything up,
yeah,
and
exactly, and you have that enthusiasm. It sometimes can dwindle a little if you've been in the industry. You have to really
yeah,
try and, but the fresh enthusiasm is amazing, and you start to see things through their eyes again, like you're showing them around the boat and saying, this is how we do this, and this is the snack cupboard, and they, oh my God, this is amazing,
yeah,
and you think, yeah, it is amazing actually, and
yeah,
here's your uniform, and they're like, wow, I get to keep this, these three skirts and this hat, and
yeah.
it's like, yeah, this is amazing. So it's quite cool. They kind of inspire you and get you excited all over again.
Oh, that's really nice. And for people, because you do obviously your website, thegreenstew.com, everyone needs to go check it out. But do you have like quick tips for people who, like we say, a blank slate? I'm new to the eco wave or I recycle, but like what else should I do? Do you have any easy things that people can incorporate to their days? It
Yeah,
doesn't have
well,
to
the
be
first thing
yachting
I
either.
always, yeah, of course. The first thing I always say is just putting on those eco lenses. It's crazy how you can see things slightly different if you just kind of change that mindset, whether it's do a little bit of research or you look around and you think, hey, hang on a minute, I do this and that could be changed in this way. So the first thing I'd say. But even little changes like, well, taking your own metal straw out, I always think that's a good one. Or to do with boats, I think, or even on at home. I mean, bin liners was one I noticed. There's a lot of bin liners being pulled out and emptied, that might have three pieces of paper in a bin and it
Yes.
gets tied up and thrown away. So that was one we changed, which was very simple but quite effective actually in reducing plastic. And voting with your dollar, when you go shopping or provisioning, just thinking twice about maybe buying something that's got 4 layers of plastic packaging, and then there's the option of maybe the loose, strawberries or the loose oranges beside it. Just
Yes.
making that choice and voting with your dollar, and sometimes maybe not even making a purchase at all is a vote in itself. So I think that's a big one that covers yachting and also everywhere. Is
Yeah.
yeah, just thinking and think, when you're out doing that sort of thing is huge. And another one is the toxics and toxins and cleaning products and facial and body products is a big one. I had the epiphany a few years back of the fact, wow, everything we put on our bodies is going into the ocean, whether it's when
Right.
we go swimming, and the sunscreen, you can see it coming off in the water.
Hmm.
Or if you may have had a body lotion or something on, or hairspray at that stage, and that's actually going into the ocean. And then when we're showering on board as well, everything that's on our skin is being washed down in the drain and eventually ends up in the water. So it's a bit of a scary one, but yeah, just a little think about, okay, maybe I could simplify things a little. Yeah,
Yes.
just simplify, simplicity, and it doesn't have to be grandiose, but yeah, just small little things
Yeah,
can
I
be
like
changed.
that. What do they encourage? It's like we don't need 100 people doing it perfectly. We need a million people doing it imperfectly or whatever. That's a green saying, right? So
It,
if we all just do a little thing
yeah,
here and there, it can make big changes.
yeah, and that's what I say. I mean, just one small change in your own practice, and then you inspire another person, and they inspire another, and it can really do a snowball effect instead of thinking, right, do I have to be this person, out on a podium
Yeah, on your
preaching about
soapbox. Yeah.
sustainability. And thank God for those people, but it's, the small people as well, just realizing that we're not helpless, our hands aren't tied, there are things we can do, and to just have hope that we are heading in the right direction, and not all hope is lost.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's like you say too, if you're starting small personally, by starting to recycle, then you're going to think, okay, well maybe I could compost. And then if I'm composting, maybe I could do that. Like it's going to lead to the next step up too. So you're constantly learning, which is kind of cool. It's not like you do one change and then you're done for life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
funny you should say composting. I've thought recently, would that go well on boats?
Yeah.
I haven't voiced it too much, but I thought, gosh, it's probably somewhere we should be heading is we do the scraps and the slops, but why not have a little compost bin? I know they have those ones these days that are quite confined, and they have them in
Yeah.
apartments in Japan.
I was just gonna say
Yeah,
it's a
so
Japanese takiyashi or something. I'm forgetting the name now, but a friend of mine in
that
London got it in
yes.
her flat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. It doesn't smell, and I think you spray something over and it creates a layer of mold or something, and it encases all the smells, and you can put absolutely anything in it.
Oh, very
So something
cool.
like that on board boats would be
That's
quite
your
cool.
that's your
Yeah.
ticket. You're gonna create that and
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, you
cool.
heard it here.
Yeah, you're here first, guys. Well, yeah, so if people want to follow up with you, let us know where they can find you on Instagram. And I've said your website, but anywhere else that you want to plug and get people to follow you, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at the Green Stew, and just recently myself and I don't know if you know Corinne Rayson, the crew coach, but
Yeah.
we're starting up a Facebook page. Well, it's started, but called Conscious Yachties, and we're hoping to bring yachties together, people who want to share tips and eco tricks with one another, but also a place where you can come and gain knowledge and help one another. I know there's a lot of crew out there that sometimes feel like they're hitting their head against a brick wall when it comes to trying to implement change with, captains, owners, HODs. So somewhere they can come and band together and know they're not alone, and seek advice, and maybe be guided on how to tackle these sort of things together, and start the green movement, or continue the green movement as it is.
Okay, great. I'll check. So that's Conscious Yachties on Facebook. That's
Conscious Yachties on Facebook. Yeah.
okay, awesome. And give Lauren a follow, everyone. Show her some love, and thank you so much for your tips and sharing a little bit. Costa Rica has been on my own bucket list for ages, and I've been to lots of corners of the world, but that has not been on it. So you're reminding me that I need to go soon.
Oh, no, you must. You won't
Yeah.
regret it.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your
Oh,
time, Lauren. And enjoy the rest of your time at home while you're in New Zealand.
I will. Thank you. And you too, Rebecca. Thank you so much
Thanks.
for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to See the World Differently. Until next time, keep daydreaming.